I'm now going to pass it over to Shireen Smith, who is an author, entrepreneur, and intellectual property expert. So please put your hands together for Shireen.
Hello. I was asked to discuss how you can think big and yet spend very little money on IP. So really, it depends. The risks and opportunities in terms of IP depend very much on the business model that you're going to have. I suppose, does anyone know what IP is? No. Well, let me explain. IP is a general umbrella term that covers a range of legal rights that protect a business and also increase its value if it succeeds. So, for example, names and logos are protected by trademarks. Then, if you have an invention, you would get a patent for it. A clever design, you would register it as a design. Know-how, trade secrets are protected through the law of confidentiality. And copyright, which is probably the most important of the IP rights in terms of how universal it is, would protect things like software, music, games, and many more sort of materials that you would use in a business. So there's nothing really that says you have to protect a patent just because you have an invention, that you have to patent it, or that just because you're a startup with very little resources, you can ignore IP till later. It really does depend on what business you're going into. Two businesses where you can't ignore IP and in terms of patents would be if you're setting up something that's got a product. An example is Anyway Up Cup was set up by Mandy Haberman, I think her name is, and this was a cup that if it fell wouldn't leak in terms of the milk in it. And she was very quickly copied by manufacturers when they realized that there was interest in the market for this product. And she had to take them to court because she did have patents. And she's been reported to say, because I had patents, I was able to go to court, defend my idea, enforce my patent rights, and that meant that I kept my monopoly in the market. This made me a lot of money. If I had not had the patents, I would not have made anything. So if you have a business like that, and no money to patent, then I would say shelve that idea initially and go after a different sort of business. Another business where you can't avoid spending a lot on IP is where you're going to build a brand, because it's very expensive to find a name that's available, especially internationally, and that you can own without infringing on the rights of others. Zumba is an example of such a business. You know, it's really all about the brand. It has some copyright in the actual choreography, but really that's not what protects the business. It's trademark, which they've got categories like videos, books, and licensing is how they make their money. And they wouldn't be able to survive if they hadn't got a good name. They wouldn't have made any money from their idea. So otherwise, there's a hell of a lot any business can do to protect its position. But you have to be really well informed about IP. And there's a lot of myths and misinformation out there. So it's important to actually get the right information. For example, the Intellectual Property Office often run free workshops. And I know a lot of people who then go and register a trademark because they think they have to register a trademark as a result of attending those. Now, trademarks are expensive. You can have a strategy to avoid them. For example, if you choose a descriptive name that says on the tin what you do, that can be a very useful way of getting a business off the ground during the proof of concept stage, and people then know what it is that you do. Then later, once you're successful, you can choose a name. Once you've got enough money to find a good name, it should be distinctive, not descriptive, to be trademarkable. And then you could use the descriptive name as a tagline. So there are strategies always for minimizing IP risks and opportunity, and also maximizing the opportunities. But if you just pick a name and buy a domain name, you're at real risk of infringing on somebody else's rights and having to rebrand. So the right to use a name does not come from domain names or company names. It comes from trademarks. So that's something to be aware of. The other important issue is copyright. Now, a lot of business owners think that they will own the rights to something just because they commission it and they pay for it. So you commission a piece of software, doesn't mean you own the rights to it. You actually have to make sure in your contract with the other party that you retain the rights. So similarly with patents, if you have an idea that you could patent, you can always keep it as a secret. It depends what it is. A product is difficult to do that with. But if using it wouldn't make obvious what it is that you've discovered, say it's an algorithm in a computer program, you don't need to patent that initially. You can just use it. And then if you have the resources later, you can apply to patent it. Just keep it secret and hope that nobody else comes along with a similar idea who then patents it. But Coca-Cola is an example of a business that's used trade secrets to protect its secret formula in its cola recipe. And they've protected this for 100 years instead of patenting it. If they'd patented it, they would have had a 20-year monopoly at most. And then by now, the recipe would be available to the public to use. But by keeping it as a trade secret, they've managed to hold on to their IP. So in conclusion, there's plenty you can do on a limited budget in terms of IP, but really make sure you are well informed. We've got lots of stuff on our website, asrights.com, that you can use. And we also offer a free consultation. So if you want to find out what your IP profile is, whether you should avoid certain types of business without a budget, then feel free to get in touch. That's it.